I figure this song is only fitting for this video. So, alright, look, we're gonna have fun. Alright, let's stop before I get hit for a dang copyright violation. Anyways, I started going through a lot of things today, reading a lot of articles. Well, before we get started, I need to make a couple of corrections, but this video is definitely going to be fun. And by the end of it, you either think I'm crazy or that I might be right onto something, okay? All right, so let's just first get started. Okay, first of all, on my last video, I definitely made a big oops. I had stated that Iraq had trillions of barrels of oil. I meant to say billions, and I didn't even realize it said trillions. I didn't catch it until I replayed the video and heard myself. So no, Iraq does not have trillions of barrels of oil. They have billions of barrels of oils, okay? Anyways, I started playing around with a bunch of articles that caught my attention today. I know the Denarian played some of these articles were on. First of all, I just want to say something. I mean, I know these articles are all over there, but for some reason, the Denarian seems to catch these little articles that are, not caught by many people's attention. You know what I mean? Or they're not out there shared by other people a lot. I'm not saying he's the only one to get them, but I noticed that his articles tend to be a little different than what a lot of other people are shown. So between the Denarian and Jeff, I do go back and forth to theirs if I want to catch some news when I don't have time to read it myself. But I thought this article was interesting because it kind of caught my attention on a couple of different places. One thing is we went back and forth over how much dinar is out there. And I told you when Jeff found the CBI website and he showed a graph and, it said that there was 51 trillion dinars had been issued. Okay, that's how much dinar is out there. And there's still people saying, no, the MO report says 76. No, the MO report says that is a combination of the currency in circulation along with other assets. But that CBI graph specifically said that since the new dinar was issued, I believe in 2003 or 2004, you can see that graph gradually continues to accumulate. And the last we saw, there's 51 trillion. This says the same thing. The value issued currency amount is 51 trillion. That matches exactly what was on the graph, okay? But something else caught my mind about this besides the fact that I was happy that this at least said the same thing that we had been talking about, okay? So I see the gold reserves are 5.3 trillion dinars. But over here, something interesting, I was reading as you go along, it says 51 trillion dinars increased by 2% compared to the same period of previous year. As for bank deposits, they increased by 5% to reach 25.8 trillion dinars. So this one it just sent me right back into that same thought pattern. And that is, I really think there's a lot of financial institutions that are holding the dinar, and that what's out there being held in the hands of speculators is way, way lower than people think. As a matter of fact, I think it's probably somewhere in the low billions, okay? Not high billions, but low billions, all right? So the amount of dinar that's out there in circulation is great concern for a lot of naysayers. They just can't see how a revaluation or even a reinstitute of the 320 could be possibly done. There's just way too many dinars out there. And, that's a pretty good argument. But let's see if we can answer that question here in a little bit, okay? So anyways, I just want to point out that this article said 53 trillion Iraqi dinars 51 trillion dinars had been issued, just like the graph that Jeff showed, just like the graph I went over, 51 trillion. That's not the 76 trillion. The 76 trillion is the M0 report again, and it specifically tells you on the bottom the amount of currency in circulation plus other assets. I just wanted to know about the actual physical notes. 51 trillion is out there. Once again, a separate source altogether is saying the same thing. 25.8 trillion dinars are being held in banks. And I thought to myself, that's pretty interesting. So I liked that for that reason. I I went ahead and started continuing to read some of these other articles. Like this one here was pretty interesting too. So I was reading it, and this guy was making a point, whether or not Donald Trump could actually take the money that was sitting in the Federal Reserve in New York. He goes on to make a point back and forth. But then as I'm reading, this certainly caught my attention. This is what he was saying. He pointed out the ease of possibility to challenge the United States with the independence of the central bank, especially since the bank lent to the government in 2015 21 trillion dinars. So that's 21 trillion. I was like, okay, so there's 21 trillion. Then if you go back to the other part, and I said to myself, 25.8 trillion, that's pretty much almost all the money. My idea seems to be falling into place, and that is a bulk of the money is in the hands of the bank and not the public. So I like that. But then this caught my attention. It said, lent 21 trillion in dinar and is still asking the government about $17 trillion. And I thought to myself, whoa, what the hell is this? $17 trillion. Now they specifically between the $2 amounts identified them. This one's dinar. This one is trillions of dollars. So of course I hit up my own little buddy, Nate, and I says, have you seen this? And he seriously, this is what he said. He said, oh, come on, Pimpy. Think about it. There's not that much in the world. Use your head. So that's Nate for you. Hey, lose your head, Pimpy. Okay, so I use my head. So anyways, we went over to take a look at this. We put in 21 trillion dinars into the converter, and sure enough, it's $17 billion. So I said, okay, so it's a typo. Yeah, so I got excited for nothing because I thought there was actually somehow magically $17 trillion hidden in the account on Iraq's behalf. Okay, so now we know that that's not true. This is just somehow some kind of weird typo. Okay, so anyways, I went on to read these other articles what I thought were interesting. It's talking about here how Iraq has delivered the first batch of oil to China in accordance with this strategical agreement. And I went on and I read in here, and then, let's see here. So I thought the article was interesting. You know what I mean? I went over there and I read that, and then like a little light clicked into my head. Like, wait a minute. So I went back to the article from earlier that I just read about, and I went back in here again. I said, wait a minute, what does it say? So the United States in 2015 borrowed 21 trillion dinars. That's quite interesting. I thought to myself, very, very interesting. And then I kept reflecting on it, and I could feel all the little gears in my head going, clicking. And I said to myself, could this be? Could Iraq raise the money to pay for the revaluation based on Iraq's economical possibilities? Like the future of Iraq. Could that be possible? Is it possible to put a price tag on what might happen in Iraq's future? I can already hear him now. Nate going, don't do it, Pimpy. I'm telling you, don't do it. Sorry, Nate, we're going to do it. Let's go down this rabbit hole here because it is interesting. Now, the reason why I say these things grab my attention and why it's interesting to me. So let's take a look at a couple of things. First of all, you got to understand what are stock futures, all right? So let's start there. Stock futures are people investing in the futures of the performances of stock. But let's go ahead and use this example in here, all right? So the best way to understand how stock futures work is to think about them in terms of something tangible. So let's say you own a popcorn company and you need to buy corn to make your product. Every business day, the price of corn goes up and down. You want to buy the corn for the lowest price possible so you can make the most profit when you sell your finished product. But you realize that the price of corn today might not be very different than it is in a year from now. I think, I said not be, that's why that didn't make sense to me. Let me reread it. But you might realize that the price of corn today might not be I keep adding that to it, might be very different than the price a year from now. Okay, so basically what they're saying is, there's a gamble there. In a year from now, the price corn might be different. So you enter what's called futures contracts with the farmer to buy his corn at a specific price on a certain future date. Okay, the farmer needs to make money too, so he's not going to agree on a price that's way below the current market value. So you'll agree to a fair price to ensure that both of you will be happy with the transaction in a year. It won't be the highest, it won't be the lowest, but neither one of you will get pounded by drastic market fluctuations. All right. So this is similar to what I'm talking about. Similar in a sense that could Iraq sell its future to investors? Is that possible? So now, now that we have an idea of what stock futures are, can Iraq generate money in advance for its ability to produce in the future? I had mentioned this before. I had mentioned that, there are many financial institutions around the world holding the dinar. I've said it many times in many videos, but for some reason I couldn't understand why. I kept saying that they're scattered throughout the countries. Many countries are holding dinar, and many of the banks are holding dinar. I said the central banks are holding the dinar. I showed you articles where it spoke about that. I seen currency swaps taking place, and so I couldn't understand why. It was just eating me up. I couldn't understand why people would have any interest in the dinar at all. Okay, so again, I came back to the article and think about what it says. If you get past where it talks about how it borrowed in 2015 21 trillion dinars, all right, it goes on to say even further. He explained the big mistake is not from the Americans, but we put our money in the Federal Reserve when our relationship was good with America. And it was supposed to be, listen to this, it was supposed to be distributed to more than one party and more than one bank. Britain, France, China. Do you see what's going on here? This money was supposed to be shared with these other countries. And for whatever reason, it never took place. Again, now my brain's clicking away and I'm just thinking about this. So it dawned on me. As a matter of fact, I was speaking to Nathan earlier. I don't know if he's going to be too thrilled about me pumping his name out there, but we were going back and forth over this thing called an oil credit. It's something that's been in the dinar community. It sounds like bullcrap to me. I didn't really give it much credence until, again, I started thinking about everything. And then I thought, there's no way. This is crazy. It's not possible. Until again, I thought about this. I went back to this article. Iraq delivers its first batch of oil to China in accordance with this strategic agreement. But this is interesting. So look at. So the deputy and the rule of law. Okay, let's go over here. So what happened was Iraq delivered 100,000 barrels of oil to the China side as the first payment within the economical agreement between the two parties. I was thinking, what? It sent the oil as payment. Not money. It sent oil. And then it talks a little bit more on here, but then it goes on to say something interesting even more. She added that all the provinces have begun to hand over hundreds of strategical projects to the government that will be discussed and handed over to Chinese companies to implement them urgently. Do you see what they're doing? They are swapping the oil for them to come in and do projects. So they're swapping oil for services, oils for work. So is this the so-called oil credits that people are talking about? Could this be what it's talking about? China, technically, this is what this is. If you think about it, if they are sending the oil in advance, and they sent 100,000 barrels in advance, and they even said as the first payment within the economical agreement. So there's no money. The oil is the money, and they have already sent it in advance to China. And what they were going to do is, you see here, this lady even tells you that what they're doing is they're going over all the projects that they want to prioritize, and then they're going to send it to China to let them know what they want done. So it comes on down here a little bit more, and it goes, a strategical agreement from Parliament clarifies the mechanisms for implementing the Grand Fall Port project. So one of the projects, of course, is the Grand Fall project. So I thought, what the hell is that? I came over here, and it talks about this company, the Daiwa company, has won quite a few projects, contracts for projects. And so what they're doing is they're prefabricating a tunnel. That's this port project that they're talking about. So this is one of the things they want implemented right away. So this barrels of oil was sent to China in exchange for this company to come in and put together a prefabricated tunnel that they need. That's just one of many projects. Do you see what we're reading here? I couldn't believe it. This looks like what people consider oil credits. So if you think about what oil credits mean again, oil credits they are using the oil as a form of payment. They're sending the oil to China in exchange for services. So no money actually comes out of the pocket of Iraq, but they do trade oil, and oil has value. So, of course, now my brain is really clicking. And I started thinking, okay, so this could be the so-called oil credits that people are talking about. Like I said, could this really be the oil credits that have been talked about throughout the dinar community? I've read a couple articles, and for the life of me, it just didn't sound realistic. But I also was talking to someone whose name won't be mentioned, but we'll go, come on, Pimpy. But anyways, I said, I don't know why, but I think these financial institutions have some kind of agreement in which they'll hold the dinar. Even when a rate change happens, it's not like they're going to go running down to the CBI bank and swap the currencies. I think they're going to hold them. I can't put my finger on it, and I can't explain why, but my thought is they're going to use the dinar that they hold to trade for assets in the future, whether it's oil, whether it's gold, I don't know, whatever it is. It was just my feeling that that's what was going to happen. There was a lot of things in there that I saw that kind of led me to that, but nothing as definite as this article that I read today. So I thought to myself, holy crap, there it is. That is what the oil credits are. So let's think about how possible could this really be? How much oil does Iraq really have? So I looked it up today. And this comes from an OPEC report. And this is what they're saying is proven oil reserves, okay? So the proven oil reserves. So if you think about this and you think about how futures work, and I know people out there going, no, stock futures are not the same. Well, it's kind of the same. So let's just use the formula that they have. So we know that Iraq has, and this is proven oil reserves, 148.8 billion barrels of oil in its reserves, okay? Now remember, you got to take an average. That's what you got to do. You got to get an average price. So I went and looked up, is there an average price? Yeah, actually there is. There's this report that came out, and it just came out, saying that OPEC's annual prices, so from 1960 to 2019, it's telling you that the average annual oil price per barrel was US dollars 69.78. 69. Oh, boo-boo. Let me back up here. So, times 69.78. You have 10,383 billion US dollars sitting in the ground. Now, there's many articles I read in which the people are trying to find a way to monetize the oil that's in the ground. This is oil that hasn't been drilled. This is their reserves. There's plenty of articles that mention this. They talk about it. Even in the minutes, it talked about positioning Iraq so that they can monetize the oil that's in the ground. Is this what they're talking about? Could Iraq be auctioning off in advance the oil that's in the ground before it's pulled out. Is that even possible? You know what I mean? So now that we kind of got our price per barrel, you see it's $10 billion. I think this is what's happening. I think I'm right. I think that the central banks around the world, these countries are holding large amounts of Iraqi dinar. Why the hell would the United States, seriously, why the hell would the United States want to borrow 21 trillion dinars? Why? That doesn't make no sense. Why the heck would we need to borrow it? Unless this is true. So what's happening is countries around the world, I think, are banking on an idea that they're going to lock in a lower price per barrel of oil. And what they're going to do in exchange is this. And I think it's possible. Now, I'm sure I'm going to catch crap from people out there who are going to give me hell, but that's okay. I think we just figured out how they're going to be able to do the RV. What's going to happen is this. When people go into cash in, and the rate change comes out, and you go running down to the bank and you're skipping along and you're happy, you're happy about the money that you're going to get. Yep, that takes care of all the speculators. But what happens is the countries benefit because what happens is they get the dinars and they get to hold the dinars. And they're holding the dinars for future assets, future products, the possibilities in Iraq. Yes, it's a gamble, but like futures, like I showed you on stock futures, both parties take a gamble on what happens in the future. So if the guy selling corn sells it at a price and then all of a sudden a year later he finds out he could have got 10 times that amount, you know what I mean? He's probably, oh man, I could have got better. But what happens if it would have been 10 times lower? Then he's happy that he locked that contract in. I think these people are doing that. They're locking in a price of per barrel oil in exchange for these countries. And I mean all of us. The United States, China, Britain, all these countries that are holding onto the dinar. I think the deal is each country will cover the rate change for their people, the speculators. They'll cover it in exchange for using the dinars to buy future assets, to do future business with Iraq. I think that's possible. When I first heard about these so-called oil credits, I just thought to myself, that's not possible. It sounds like BS. It really does. But you see, Iraq, it's not just that they got at that rate of 69.78 for that, what's that, 148.8 billion barrels. You're looking at, what I say, $10 trillion. So it's not, you're thinking, well, that doesn't cover everything. You're right, it don't. But they have other things out there. Iraq has really, really great soil for agriculture. As a matter of fact, at one time, they were starting to really be a booming industry for agriculture. So they still have that to look forward to. So there's agriculture. There's gold. Lots of gold. I've talked about this before, and I said I've been trying to find out what company is going to get their hands on it. But the Tigris River has the second largest gold deposit in the world, and nobody's even over there mining it. The great thing about it is the gold is sitting closer to the surface, so the cost of mining this gold is going to be really, really inexpensive. But gold isn't the only mineral there. Iraq has other minerals. So you see there's other possibilities of Iraq, generating a lot of money for their economy. They're going to have a booming economy. We've talked about this. We know that it's projected that over the next 15 or so year, Iraq is going to have the biggest boom in their economy than any other countries. It's projected to go up 9% GDP, 11%, 16% GDP. These GDPs are huge. This is a booming economy. Okay, so I think that's what's going on. I know I'm going to catch crap by certain people later on down the line over this, but I think this so-called Iraqi credits did not sound legitimate before. All of a sudden, after reading this article, it looks way more possible. It's already being done. Iraq is using their oil. They are trading it for stuff that they need. But I don't think this is the only thing, not just services, not just building things in Iraq. So if you think about that, if Iraq doesn't have to actually spend physical money or generate the money needed for these projects, but instead can trade oil for it, that saves them a lot of time and problems of trying to figure out how to generate the money. But I also believe that that's not the only thing they're going to use to take advantage of. I think what's going to happen is, and another reason why I think this, remember, the bank said the bank-to-bank transactions are between $100,000 and $50,000 dinars. If they're going to do a deletion of the zeros, it doesn't make no sense for that to happen. I also told you that as late as August 2019, the CBI was kind of discouraging the idea of deleting the zeros. They said between low inflation, the increase in gold reserves, the GDP, there was no need to do the deletion of the zeros. I think this is how they're going to do it. Okay, so let me know what you think. Go ahead. I know some of you people are going to give me hell. I'm pretty sure I'm going to hear from a certain individual with a crocky kind of accent. And I'm sure there's a group of people in another group that might give me crap. But let me know what you think. Is this possible? I've been saying all along that these financial institutions are holding the dinar, and I could not figure out why. It made no sense to me. When I read this article, it just kind of clicked in my head. I think that's what's going to happen. I think whoever was talking about these so-called oil credits, it's legitimate. You can't say oil credits aren't real. This article is telling you that it is. These people are trading oil for future work. That's oil credits, technically, okay? So, doesn't that make sense? Share the burden of the revaluation amongst many countries with the promise to do sell assets, maybe future businesses from Iraq. Who knows? Anyways, let me know what you think. Hit the like button if you like it. Hit the down button if you don't like it. Leave your comments. Let me know. Please subscribe. All right. And yeah, let me know what you think. All right. I'm curious to see how this comes out.